Okay guys, so this is 6.5 multiplying and dividing rational expressions. So just this thing at the beginning, just talking about with numbers. If I ask you to multiply 3/5 times 2/3, it is true that when you multiply fractions you can just multiply straight across and say 6 over 15. But if I did that, I would have to then simplify, and they both divide by 3, and I would say 2 over 5, right? What I want you to do, and it's definitely going to be imperative as we do this with polynomial expressions, is that I want you to simplify before you multiply, okay? So I see that I have 3 in the numerator and a 3 in the denominator, and it doesn't matter that this is in that fraction and this is in that fraction. When you multiply, it basically just becomes one big fraction where you're multiplying these two and multiplying those two, okay? So this basically is just writing this, and they both divide by 3. So what I can do is I can say if there's a factor in the top and the bottom of a fraction, I can divide it out. So that is just 2/5. Okay? Now when I divide a fraction by another fraction, so this is 2/7 divided by 5/7. And I think we've already talked about this before, but I want to just take a moment and remind you of something. If I asked you to take 1/2 and cut it in half, I think it's pretty clear that a half cut in half is a fourth. But a way to think of it mathematically is a half divided by 2, which can be written as 2 over 1. So 2 is the same thing as 2 over 1. If I wanted to rewrite this expression so that I no longer have a fraction in the denominator, I can multiply, oh, not by that. I can multiply by the reciprocal, 1 over 2, the reciprocal of the denominator, because what I get is 1 times 1 over 2 times 2, which is 1/4. And then I get 2 times 1 over 1 times 2, which is 2. And that is just 1. And anything divided by 1 is just the number that you're dividing. So 1/4 divided by 1 is 1/4. So here's the point. If I divide a fraction by something else, by a number or by another fraction, all I have to do is say, instead of dividing by 2 over 1, let me multiply by 1 over 2. And what I could do, instead of multiplying it out, is just say these simplify down to 1, so I don't need it anymore. Okay? So this right here, 2/7 divided by 5/7, I might as well just say, why don't I multiply by the reciprocal of the denominator, 7/5? Because the point is that these will cancel each other out and I no longer need them, and so I'm really just dealing with this problem right here, which is, well, I notice that the 7's can cancel out because there's 1 on top and 1 on bottom, and so I'm left with 2 over 5. Okay? So what I want to happen is that when you see something like, well, let me go back to this form. If you see something like 2/9 divided by 1/5, you automatically think, well, that's the same thing as 2/9 times 5 over 1. Just flip the bottom fraction. The answer is 10/9. Okay? So this problem right here, when it says 3/5 divided by 2/3, I want you to recognize that as just 3/5 times 3/2. Okay? So then I multiply straight across. I mean, always check to see if there's anything that simplifies. 3 and 3, 5 and 2, nothing simplifies. So I've got 9/10, and there's my answer. Okay? So the name of the lesson is multiplying and dividing. It actually is multiplying and dividing and simplifying complex rational expressions, but basically it's all about multiplying and dividing with some adding and subtracting combined in. Okay, so let's do this problem, A. This is multiplying, so kind of like just right here, where I'm just multiplying the fractions to see what anything simplifies out. When I multiply these two fractions, it's basically 3 times all of this divided by this times 6, right? But I notice that 5x plus 10 could be rewritten as 5 times x plus 2. If there's anything I can factor out, I'm going to, because I want to get this into its factors, its simplest form, so that I can then simplify anything. See if there's anything at top and bottom. Now I notice that x plus 2 and x plus 2 are both factors in the denominator. This is actually x plus 2 times 6, right? So because I'm multiplying, I can cancel out or divide out x plus 2. I also notice that I have a 3 in the numerator and a 6 in the denominator, which simplifies. If I divide them by 3, I'm left with 1 and 2. So the only thing I'm left with is 5 over 2. And some sarcastic people, which you don't understand, but you don't have to. There's some rude people in the room. Don't worry about it. Okay. For this problem, I've got 2 over x plus 4 divided by this fraction. And so what I would tell you to do is set up another set of fractions, but instead of saying divide, go ahead and put multiplication. So this one, I can't do anything to 2. I can't factor anything out of x plus 4. But when I write this one, instead of saying divided by this fraction, I'm going to say multiplied by this fraction and flip it, okay? So this one on the numerator, 10x, is actually going to go to the denominator. And there's nothing I can do to simplify that, so I'll just leave it 10x. Now the denominator of what I'm dividing by will actually go here, but instead of just writing it down, I'm going to go ahead and factor first. So I notice that there's an x in both terms, so I'm going to factor an x out, and I'm left with 3x plus 2. So like I said, any fraction divided by another fraction is the same thing as saying that first fraction times the reciprocal of the second fraction, okay? So all I did was flip it. Okay, and I went ahead and factored because I know I'm going to need to simplify. So I notice that I've got an x in the numerator and an x in the denominator, so I can divide those out. X divided by x is 1. I also notice that I've got a 2 in the numerator and a 10 in the denominator, so that's 1/5. So, see what's left in the numerator? I've got a 3x plus 2. And in the denominator, I'm left with x plus 4 and 5, so I got to multiply those. 5x plus 20. And there's my answer. Okay? On this problem, I am multiplying, so I don't have to flip anything. But what I want to go ahead and do is factor. So you can either write the factors above and below, or you can just set up a new set of fractions. I would probably just write it above and below, but we'll go ahead and keep it clean. So I notice that this is just a quadratic, and the factors of -18 that add up to +3 are x plus 6 and x minus 3. Okay. This one right here, I'm going to factor out, I notice that, I mean, this is not a quadratic, it's a cubic, but they both have an x in them, and 18 and 2 are divisible by 2, so I'm going to factor out a 2x, and I'm left with x squared minus an 18 divided by 2 is 9, and the x is gone. But we should hopefully try and remember to notice that x squared minus 9 factors again to x plus 3, x minus 3, because it's the difference of perfect squares. Over here, I'm going to factor this one. The factors in -12 that add up to -1 are -4 and +3. And then in the denominator, 5x plus 30, I can factor out a 5, and I'm left with x plus 6. And at this point, I just start simplifying anything that cancels out. So I notice that x plus 6 and x plus 6 cancel each other out. X minus 3 and x minus 3 cancel each other out. X plus 3 and x plus 3 cancel each other out. And the only thing I'm left in the numerator was x minus 4, and in the denominator I've got a 2x and a 5. So my final answer is going to be x minus 4 divided by 10x. Yeah, I am. Should put that on the front table. Okay. On problem D, did y'all grab the homework? Okay. It's 2 pages, so you're not going to staple it. I'm making a video for it right now, okay? Alright. Nope, that'll be just for today and tomorrow. I don't know what that is. Oh, counselor. Miss Cooper, and then at the front door. Okay. So on this problem, I'm saying all of this divided by all of that. So remember, any fraction divided by another, I'm going to say this times the reciprocal of that. So I'm going to go ahead and write this times that. And I'm going to go ahead and start factoring. So I notice that 8x plus 24, I actually can factor something out. It's an 8, and I'm left with x plus 3. And I'm going to go ahead and write 6 minus x right there. 2 pages, staple it. No, 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 right there. Look right there. Okay. And then and I'm making a video right now. And then on this side, when I divide by this fraction, I just flip it. So this one goes right here. And I'm going to go ahead and factor it. The factors of 24 that add up to -10 are -4 and -6. And then this one, I put in the denominator. And I can factor out a 2, so I'm going to factor out a 2, and I'm left with x plus 3. It's fine. They're not going to be able to hear you. It's fine. Y'all can talk, you just don't scream. Okay, so this fraction times the reciprocal of that one, and then we just start simplifying anything that cancels out. So I notice an x plus 3 and an x plus 3. I also notice that this is 8 and 2, so 8 divided by 2 is 4 over 1. And then I see that this is x minus 6 and this is 6 minus x, yeah? So the instinct is to, I mean, like, you want to cancel them out, but they're the exact opposite of each other. So what I know is that if I factor a negative out of one of these, and it really doesn't matter which one, a lot of people will go ahead and do this one because of the way it looks. If you factor a negative out, it becomes a -6 plus x, or x minus 6, okay? So now I can factor out x minus 6 with x, or divide it out, x minus 6. So here's what I'm left with. 4 times x minus 4, which is 4x minus 16, over a -1. Okay? But that should just be -4x plus 16. And if you don't want to have to worry about dividing by that negative, instead of dividing the negative out of the denominator, go ahead and divide the negative, or factor the negative out of the numerator. Okay? So if I had said -6 minus x, then I could have just canceled out 6 minus x's. Or -x plus 6, same thing. Okay, something to think about. Okay, for this question, I've got to, it's a dividing, but at the same time, in the denominator, I've got addition. And what I have to do is I cannot flip and multiply until I deal with this right here. So I know that in order to add these two fractions, I have to have a common denominator, and 3 and a have nothing in common. So this one I need a 3 on, and this one I need an a on. So what this becomes is 1/4 divided by, and if you want to go ahead and start multiplying, that's fine, but I want you to just make sure we're clear on what the denominator is. When you have a common denominator, you can combine the numerators, 3 plus 4a, and then it's just one denominator, 3a. Because remember, if I said what's 2/7 plus 1/7, you would say it's 3/7. That's just 2 plus 1 over the common denominator, 7, okay? So 3 over 3a plus 4a over 3a is just 3 plus 4a over 3a. Alright, now I'm ready to flip and multiply. This is equivalent to 1/4 times, flip that, 3a over 3 plus 4a. Now, as far as like simplifying, does anything cancel out? Well, this has a 3 and that has a 3, but this is 3 plus. This has an a and that has an a, but this is 3 plus 4a. Only if it's multiplication can I do that. So really my answer is just 1 times 3a, which is 3a. And this is 4 times 3 plus 4a. So I'm going to distribute that. 12 plus 16a, or 16a plus 12. Either way, that's my answer. Okay. On G, again, I've got addition in the denominator, which means I need to add them, combine them before I can flip and multiply. So when I think about common denominator between 16 and 4, I notice that, 4, if I just multiply it by 4, now I've got a denominator of 16. So I only need to multiply something on this one. So this becomes 16 over, and my denominator, the common denominator is 16, and this is just x minus 4 plus 4, right? And this right here, we can think of it as 16 divided by 1, right? So what I've got is 16 divided by 1, well, I should have written that higher. 16 divided by 1 divided by, those cancel each other out, x divided by 16, right? So 16 is the same thing as 16 over 1. X minus 4 plus 4 is just x over the common denominator 16 and then I flip and multiply by 16 over x, and then I just multiply straight across. 16 times 16 is 256, 1 times x is x, and there's my answer. Okay? Alright, we got two more. On this one, I see that the numerator is the one that has addition, so I need to deal with that first. When I think about common denominators, I know that x plus 2 and 2 do not have any common factors. They both have a 2 in them, but 2 is not a factor. So on this side I need 2, and on this side I need x plus 2. Okay? So my numerator is 32 plus, and then I distribute the 3, 3x plus 6 over the common denominator, 2 times x plus 2. So there's my numerator. So just find a common denominator and then combine. And then the denominator is just that, right? We could go ahead and, you know what I'm going to do? No, I'm not. I'm going to go ahead and just write it as multiplication. Okay. So this is the numerator, right? That stays the same. That's 3x plus 38, because 32 plus 6 is 38. And the denominator is 2 times x plus 2. Right? I just don't want to do steps multiple times. So this is the numerator. Now, instead of saying divided by all this, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So I would say normally, well, I'll go ahead and factor it over here and then put it over there. Like, if I think about what can I factor out of 6x squared plus 76x? I know 6 is even, so is 76. If I divide 76 by 2, 2 goes into 7 3 times with 1 left over, and then 38. Okay. Sorry if you couldn't see that. Okay. So I'm going to factor out a 2 and an x, because 38 is not divisible by 3. So 2x, and I'm left with 3x plus 38. And then down here I can factor it to factors of negative 2 that add up to positive 1, positive 2, and negative 1. So this flips and becomes x plus 2 times x minus 1, and 2x times 3x plus 38. Okay, so combine this fraction using common denominators, and then simplify into one fraction. Combine the numerators, 32 plus 3x plus 6 over the common denominator, 2 times x plus 2. And then I just factor the denominator, and then I said, okay, this is equivalent to saying this fraction, which is this, times the reciprocal of that fraction. So just flip it and put the numerator on the denominator and denominator on the numerator. Okay, and then I just need to simplify out common terms. X plus 2, x plus 2. 3x plus 80, there's 3x plus 38 and 3x plus 38. And nothing else simplifies, so I'm left with x minus 1 over 2 times 2x, which is 4x. Now, you're not guaranteed that things will cancel out. If they don't cancel out, then you would just have to multiply it out. Like, say this x plus 2 didn't cancel out, then I would say I would just multiply this back out. Or if this didn't cancel out and this did, I would multiply out that times that. Expand it out. Okay? You're not guaranteed that everything will cancel out, but a lot of it will. Okay. So one more. On this one, we want to find a common denominator. This one has x squared and this one has x minus 3 in the denominator, right? So they don't have any common factors. This is x squared, this is x plus 3. It doesn't have an x factor. So I'm going to multiply this side by x squared. I'm going to multiply this one by x plus 3. And now I've got a common denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and write it as 12 over x plus 3 divided by, okay. So we got our denominator is just x squared times x plus 3, or x plus 3 times x squared, doesn't really matter. And the numerator is going to be this multiplied out minus that, right? But that is the main fraction. Okay, x times, or x plus 3 times 2x plus 6 is 2x squared plus 6x plus 6x plus 18. So we've got 2x squared plus 12x plus 18. And then we've got minus 2x squared. Okay? So I'm going to simplify and then I'm going to start factoring. I noticed that 2x squareds will cancel each other out. And so here's what I'm really dealing with. 12 over x plus 3 times 12x plus 18 is in the numerator, so that should go in the denominator. 12x plus 18. And x squared times x plus 3 is in the denominator, so that should go in the numerator. X squared times x plus 3. Okay? So at this point, I noticed that 12x plus 18 is one more thing I can factor. I can factor out a 6, and I'm left with 2x plus 3. So 12x plus 18 is that. So, as far as what can simplify, I see an x plus 3 and an x plus 3. And I see a 12 and a 6, and 12 divided by 6 is 2 over 1. So I'm left with 2 times x squared divided by 2x plus 3. And there you go. So main idea, when they're complex like this, they have addition or subtraction within the big fraction. Combine the fractions, and then once you've got like this fraction divided by that fraction, then you can move to multiplication by the reciprocal. Okay? At that point, you factor and cancel out any common terms. Okay, I hope this helps.